in the UK. My name is William Shorten. I'm a consultant, coach, and an associate with DLA Ignite. And it's my privilege to be the guest editor on this afternoon's edition of the Digital Download. So just before we get tucked into the detail, let's go round and introduce ourselves. So I'm going to go up and then kind of go round the rest of the group. And let's start with Tim, please.
Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite.
Thanks, Tim. Matt.
Hi, everybody. I'm Matt Pybus. So I'm associate of Crux and co-founder of Link42, who are associates of DLA Ignite.
Alex.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alex Abbott, founder of Sapiro and working very closely with Tim and Adam at DLA Ignite.
Brentney.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon. I am also a partner of DLA. My name is Brittany Hutchinson. I'm leading the digital transformation at Little Bird Marketing. Happy to be.
Thank you. Lenwood.
Hello, I'm Lenwood Ross. I'm the founder and CEO of Accelerate. I am also a DLA Ignite partner here in the United States. So good morning and good afternoon.
Fantastic. And over to you, Lorena.
Hi, good morning and good afternoon. I am based in Lima, Peru. I am the founder of EDP Consultants, a legal marketing and communications agency. Very happy to be here with DLA again.
Thanks, Lorena. Rob.
Good morning, all. Rob Durant. I'm the founder of Flywheel Results. I don't know any of these people.
That's because you're locked in a room with white brick walls.
That's because you're in prison.
And last but by no means least, Adam.
Hi, I'm Adam Gray. Last but least, I'm Adam Gray. I'm co-founder of DLA Ignite and Tim's business partner. And it's lovely to see you all here, even you, Rob, who I've never seen before.
So for those of you who haven't joined us before, the idea of the digital download is we get the panel together and we just have a good chat about the kind of the stories, the feeds, the events that have come through our LinkedIn and social pages over the last 7 days. We really like you where possible to interact. So we know there's a kind of chat stream, so please feel free to add any comments, anything that back up some of the stories that you're hearing from everybody, and please get engaged as much as you possibly can. I think when we look at in terms of the subjects that have been going on today on a lot of this week on a lot of social platforms, there's a lot about what's going on in Eastern Europe and Ukraine. This week has also one of the highlights has been on Tuesday, International Women's Day. So we'll be talking a bit about that today. And for those of you who've been tuning in for the last 2 or 3 weeks, you know that we've been talking about the modern workplace, the Great Resignation. So we've got a couple of stories related to that. And hopefully there'll also be something light-hearted as well to kind of finish with. So let's jump in and talk about not exactly the elephant in the room, but the big news story that's around at the moment and what's going on in Ukraine. And Matt, you had an interesting article which gave a kind of a new angle, if you like, certainly from my perspective of what we've seen on LinkedIn, because generally people, I think, tend to stay clear of kind of politics and kind of big political events that are going on. But obviously the events over the last couple of weeks have changed that a bit, certainly on LinkedIn. So please share your story.
Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen in a minute.
Yeah, can you share your screen, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. So this article popped into my feed. Now I know the author. Just tell me when we can see that. Yes, there we go.
That's great.
So I know the author. I gave him a little bit of coaching as he was leaving the armed forces. Now, LinkedIn as a platform, we seem to associate it with hunting for work, B2B networking opportunities, etc., etc. What we don't see a lot of is something like this. So this was a post, and this went absolutely bonkers. So this guy Andy, he's got military surplus kit from when he left the armed forces in his attic, and he puts a post out saying, "Look, guys, we're not going to use this kit anymore. Why don't we all pool it and send it out to the Ukraine to help the we've got civilians out there taking up arms. Why don't we send it out? It's not a political statement. It's a statement to say, right, let's help these people on a personal level. And what happened here is this went quite haywire is probably not the right word, but it's currently sitting at just under 250,000 views. It's sitting at 2,000 odd interactions in terms of likes and about 300 odd comments and 250 odd shares. And what's happened here is we've got something that's resonated with people and it's ended up saving lives. So Andy, as a side hustle, designs websites. So he put a website together in a day to organise pick-up points and drop-off points throughout the UK. And people are dropping their kit off, they're dropping medical supplies off, and these are going to a forward base in Poland. This is how quickly things started. This started at the beginning of the week. And it's finding its way into the field and it's saving lives because he says, speaking to Andy on Wednesday, I know the kit we've got out there has saved lives. So this is a different angle on the power of social media, really. So I don't know whether anybody's sort of got any thoughts on that. It's quite humbling.
I think it's a great initiative, Matt. I think it's why not use this? And it's great that people are volunteering and supporting the people in Ukraine. 10 out of 10.
And it's and he's speaking to him. He said this has got bigger than me, Andy, wanting to help something. You're getting people from Amazon and other logistics companies saying, right, is there anything that we can do to help, or do you need any sort of advice on how? Because this is a major logistical operation now.
Yeah, I think for me, the power of being on LinkedIn and just social media in general with what is going on is seeing just the unique ways that others are finding a way to help. And to where without social media, maybe before you thought the only way to help is to give money. Like you're looking somewhere to give money. And what social media is showing us is like, get creative, leverage your skills, leverage your connections. There's really just so many ways to help when like other countries, other parts of the world are in a major crisis. So
yeah, it's I don't want to take the focus off Ukraine, but just thinking broader about the impact of social media. This is just one of the ways, but we also know that Ukrainians are using social media in the country to resist. And that's a completely different kind of situation probably than Russia was expecting, right? I mean, the impact of this medium has been so profound. You sometimes don't realize what's going to be the effect until maybe in this case, it's too late, right? So the last time Russia tried to roll tanks across Europe was a long time ago. And well, actually not that long ago, but social media was being used, differently then. So, now we're seeing something that's very unique, but the application for organizations and communities all over the world is tremendous.
Absolutely, and Brentley made a good point there. The previous engagement would have been send us money, and that would then be used to purchase kit, and the time frame is of an issue here. All of a sudden, you've got kit that is making its way to a location. It's not had to go through the purchasing process. It's already there. It's already available, and it's getting out there quicker. And it's not only this particular issue. Its potential is quite enormous in terms of humanitarian crises all over the world.
And isn't it remarkable how the spread of what was happening caused resources, to come to the person who's organizing, as opposed to that person having to go out and find all the different pieces and pull all that together, right? Just because, the thing got in front of the right eyes at big companies like Amazon, all of a sudden you've got logistics of you know, the best logistics in the world, frankly.
And the issue of Andy being able to being web literate, if you like, he created a website, which I can put the link in, that people could upload their own collection points. So they could upload you could upload your garage as a collection point onto that system, and geographically it would place it in a map so that anyone looking to donate could find somewhere to go and take it. So that was
I think
That's
it
awesome.
speaks to the lowering of the barriers to entry of a good idea. Now you can go to the public with the germ of a good idea and get the word out there. Anyone can contribute those. And people are really desperate to contribute and make a difference, but overwhelmed by it at the same time. There's no way I could put together a logistics company to get all of these supplies, but I want to share this one item. And then that starts snowballing. And if it wasn't he who built the websites, I have no doubt somebody else would have stepped up and been able to do the same, because I don't have a lot, but I have a little bit that I can contribute. It's that old stone soup story, but this time it's put together for an important cause.
Yeah, it's such a great point, Rob. My hope is, and you know, it's part of what we're doing, is just spreading the word and letting people know that you actually don't need that much to make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Especially now with the technology, right? Just be willing to step up.
Yeah.
That's the biggest barrier to entry at this point. Be willing to put yourself out there.
Absolutely. And some great comments there from Andrew, from Louis, from Eric and Robert. Thank you very much indeed for adding to the debate and adding in your viewpoint. And Matt, thanks for kicking us off with such an important subject and a really great example of the power of social. So let's move dynamic slightly and let's come back. As I said at the start, Tuesday was International Women's Day. And, you know, my feeling certainly was that there was more than ever kind of articles, stories, news on LinkedIn related to this event. And a couple of the panel have picked out some great stories of their own from what they saw. So let's start with Lorena, and let's get a South American perspective on IWD. You'll have to come off mute, I'm afraid, Lorena.
Okay, thank you. No, I was just sharing that we are here on the digital download on my LinkedIn, so that's why I wasn't very active right now. I want to have my people here in South America joining us. So I choose, as I told you before, some minutes ago, it's a post from a tax lawyer that who has been chosen a top LinkedIn top voice for LinkedIn, and she was informed last on the it was published by LinkedIn on the 8th of March, and Katarzyna Dunin, she's a tax lawyer, and you know I work with lots of lawyers and tax lawyers, and some people think that tax lawyers very arid, like very draw. So, but she has 35,000 followers. She's started with a LinkedIn or in LinkedIn 3 years ago. I've interviewed her. We have the interview on my YouTube page, and what I love from this post is that she has been chosen as a top voice, and that she's very the way she works and she publishes is strategic, because she told me, yes, of course I'm strategic, I am very constant. That's the most important thing on social, to have this engagement, to get engagement. But she posts on tax issues, she posts on personal issues. When she posts on personal issues, she has a large engagement, and from colleagues. So what it's worth here or very valuable is that she's a person that is important, I mean, for people all in our community, in our tax community. And she shares very valuable information for all to us, as I mentioned, on tax issues, on regulations, and on personal issues, like, for example, that she has a son that has special needs, and she informs about schools or about different possibilities and shares that with maybe lots of other lawyers that have the same situation. So yes, that's what I wanted to share with you. I don't know if you have any comments or questions to that post. Before I talked to her after she got this mention from LinkedIn, and I asked, because she works at Price Waterhouse, and we all know that Price Waterhouse has a huge. I saw it at Simon Kemp's information that Price Waterhouse is one of the most important or the most active organizations on LinkedIn. Maybe it's related that Price Waterhouse has this engagement, and that helps her to have that engagement regarding the algorithm. I don't know, but really it's amazing. She's an incredible person, and she's trying to introduce this within her organization. And it's not easy, because they are all lawyers, and you know that it's not easy to change the mindset.
What a great example of a real digital native, Lorena.
Yes, really, she's a native, because she's very genuine,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a key component. Sure, maybe PwC is a very large organization and they support social, but I think without the emotional engagement or like the feeling of connection, her coworkers, regardless if there were 50 or 50,000, they aren't going to share their stories and add conversation without that. So I think that speaks to the quality.
I agree, Brittany. I think that's a great point about getting people to actually share their stories and being able to connect with PwC. I don't know about you, but I feel very disconnected from PwC. I don't think that they're like me. But when I see that post, I go, oh, actually, they're actually quite. But she seems really nice, and maybe that's someone like me. So I feel a little more of a connection.
I can't possibly
It's the
care
corporate
as
versus
much.
social branding.
I was just saying, I can't possibly care as much about the company you work for as you. And that's PwC or any other organization out there. I'm not connecting with PwC when I connect with you. I'm connecting with you. If you happen to work at PwC, okay, that's great. And maybe there's an opportunity to do something. But first and foremost, I'm going to connect with the human.
Yeah, that's true. And she has she's now, like she told me, she's not the spokesperson from PwC Peru, but many people contact her to ask about PwC. So that's
there you
true.
go.
It comes back to what we always say about
social and you get leads. Wow.
and about creating credibility in the social space. I'm just curious, Lorena, when you interviewed her, because you said that she'd only started this about 3 years ago, and I mean, it sounds an amazing kind of momentum that she's gathered to have 35,000 followers in 3 years. Have you got any idea from your conversations about what kind of sparked her, what led her to start going down this path?
What I asked her, do you have a strategy? How do you do? Because you are really a model, an example, and I would like to have the amount of followers you have. What do you do? She said, I don't have a strategy. I only want to communicate. I am a natural, although I am a lawyer, I am a natural communicator, and I try to inform, and that's what comes from my heart. But she told me that she is always following people. She is always taking taking courses on communication. She also took a course on communication, hand communication for tough people. It's because of her son, but because her son has not condition. But what she told is that she's interested in communicating is always, and that's that the other part came like naturally, in a natural way. Yes.
So that communication was really what kind of drove her to then start to kind of build on that.
Yeah,
this is adjacently related, but I was just hearing, or I just heard this week, a girl trying to make a point that it's about the community. It's not about the number of followers. And her example was she works with influencers to share like clothing and branding. And she had been pushing this one girl off for several months and just wasn't sending her merchandise because she didn't think she would do as well. She had a significantly smaller following and community than the other influencers she was working with. And finally, she had a piece of clothing that wasn't selling. So she sent it to her and she said within literally one day, this girl had sold it out because her connection with her much smaller community in comparison to the other influencers was so strong that they all jumped right on it. And so she did a really nice post just saying like, you know, someone mentioned it's about caring for your people. And I think that shows too.
That is a great point. I mean, you know, we're on social media and we're looking at profiles and people all the time. And there's nothing more revealing than seeing that person that has a few 100,000 people who are following them, but only 2 or 3 connections on a post. I mean, that tells much more than, you know, anything else that person could be saying about themselves on social media. It reveals a lot.
So just building on this, because I said there was another story. Tim, you also had a kind of a post linked to International Women's Day and recognition of somebody as well, didn't you?
Yes, thank you. Yes, this is Christina, and she was on a list of some of the top women founders for startups. And I just think it was, you know, there's a lot of people that were putting out fairly formally items on International Women's Day, I thought, in my personal opinion. And what I saw here was just something something different, where people, there was an organization here, TechRound. What they did, they'd gone out, they'd found people, and what they wanted to do was actually give them recognition because of the fact that they were female founders of startups, which I think is something that we don't see enough of. And just so, and you know, more power to people that are willing to stand up, male or female.
Yeah, I had a quick look through the list, and it was really kind of diverse range of people in a diverse range of businesses and industries. As you say, great to see that kind of identified and pointed out.
Chicago actually has I don't know why I say actually, but Chicago has a very supportive, nice community for women founders and just like women in leadership. That was always one of my favorite communities to be a part of whenever I lived there. Not only was there a co-working space that was geared around women and like certain incubators that I could participate in. I was part of a coaching organization they set up. It was called Founding Females. And so I think now seeing all of it go social and expand the reach and just bring in, you know, more diversity. Someone mentioned diversity in the comments, but again, the power of social media. And it's just awesome to see how small the community can still feel, even though the reach is global now.
Yeah, I've been involved with a French-based nonprofit now for about 5 years, which is the assumption is that what social media does is it provides empowerment. It doesn't matter who you are. and it's about making sure that we empower people to use social, and just like Rob said earlier on, it breaks down the barrier to entry. Anybody can start up a business. It doesn't matter what your background, which country you're in, as long as you've got access to the internet and you've got a mobile phone. Okay, those things sometimes can be a stopper, but the fact of the matter is social media allows you, breaks down those barriers, and basically democratizes the way that we run business and the way that we are able to actually go to market and do stuff.
I was having exactly that conversation with a military charity just before this meeting, and I was saying that before we were in the lockdown scenario that we've been experiencing over the past few years, people would have a big reticence about starting up a business, about engaging with people. But the barrier's broken down all of a sudden within the social media space, in that you haven't got to physically go up to a person anymore. It gives you've all of a sudden got that confidence that you probably haven't had in the past, and that's what some of this coaching we do gives people. It gives them a confidence to be able to engage with people on a level where they wouldn't have done it in a crowded room.
Yeah. It's so important. But I think, one thing that, is important to kind of point out, we talked about it a little bit, and when talking about some of the other stuff, is just the importance of taking down the masks, right? It's, and by masks, I mean to be authentic, to be yourself, right? That who you are, right? And I think actually this gets to kind of the idea of, why don't more people, stand up and speak up, or, it's just, for so long, people have been kind of beaten down and devalued. And so they're just like grasshoppers in their own eyes, right? That the limiting belief is actually in themselves, right? So it's really convincing people that you are unique, you are valuable, you have something that you can contribute to this world that nobody else can contribute. Right? It's just getting people to believe that.
And I love that point that Catherine made there about, it should be International Women's Day every day, not just on Wednesday, and lots of other days every day as well, and women founders do struggle getting funding even now. One of the things that we all have to do, watching this, is to play our part in making sure that that we offer, we're being equal with people, regardless of the background and color, race, religion, sex, etc.
Yeah, and it's all about people being judged to the value that they bring to the society or the organization or whatever, rather than any sex, race, creed, beliefs, etc., etc.
Great to see Catherine now. I've known Catherine for about 7 or 8 years, so thank you very much indeed for getting involved, Catherine. And I think that tagline of "break the bias" was something, again, that really stood out for me this year, because maybe it had been used before, but it really it seemed that like a lot of more people were behind it and really using it clearly. And I think that one of the posts that kind of really stood out for me was one from Girls in Marketing, and I'll put it in the link. And this was a series of kind of cards where they talked about, imagine a CEO, and then underneath, is it a man? Imagine a feminist. Underneath, is it a woman? ? Imagine a nurse. Is it a woman? So that was done from the CPD agency. So there's a lot of kind of very creative thought, I think, coming out at the moment and being done in an impactful way, which helps us to kind of reflect perhaps on some of our assumptions, some of the limiting beliefs that we have within ourselves. And I think, as you said, Tim, the break the bias, and as Catherine's written here, why should it just be one day out of 365? We should be thinking about it all the time.
I think that's a really important point. I must be honest and say that this year I found the concept of International Women's Day quite a depressing thing, because And I know that there is work to be done, and therefore you have to have vehicles like International Women's Day. But this is 2022, for heaven's sake. We shouldn't be looking at somebody's skin, their disabilities, their religion, their sex, their sexual orientation as being any kind of defining feature of their competency in the job role. God knows we've got so many companies that are full of middle-class, middle-aged, bald white men that are utterly incompetent. You would have thought that the market and the world would have recognised that.
You're talking about DLA there.
Yeah, no, but
I feel seen.
You would have thought that the market would have recognised that being this traditional CEO director type person actually is no guarantee even of moderate or basic competency to do anything. And yet still, whether you're a different colour, a different race, a different sex, it is seen as starting from a lower point where you have to work harder to get to the same level. And I think it's heartbreaking, utterly heartbreaking. That the world is still at a point when these things are not just consigned to the dim and distant annals of history. Yeah. Sorry.
I don't disagree.
The data shows that women are recognized based on how they prove themselves, and men are recognized and given opportunity based on their perceived potential. I think if you were to ask 80% of people, anyone who has a bit of sanity, they would not admit to judging someone based on the things that you bring up, Adam, like, anything other than their capabilities. But the important thing to make a connection to what Will was saying is there's so many unconscious biases that we have. And I think that's the main problem. Like, we just don't realize when you come into an interview based on knowing my name's Brittany, I'm probably a female, and you just don't realize what kind of conclusions you're drawing before I even get a chance to present myself.
I remember having an interview a number of years ago when somebody said to me, "Do you have any unconscious biases?" And my response was, "Actually, I don't. If I've got any biases that are unconscious, I don't actually know about them." But that's a marker of how we've evolved. Is that we've had these biases instilled into us through our or sort of prejudices in the past that we're having to try and purge now. Now that we're in a society that's actually taking the ball by the horns and saying, right, we don't actually accept the biases of the past.
I think there's a point. There's an awareness, and I think, to come back to Adam's point, this is where these days have an impact because they generate a greater sense of awareness. Once you've got awareness, then you've got choices. Yeah. But it's the choices of you as an individual. So you can continue to act or behave in the way that you did, or actually, because of all this new information that you've got and these different viewpoints, you can challenge yourself to say, actually, perhaps I should be making a different choice, or I can be making a different choice. And I don't feel that I just have to go down the same tried and tested route that I've done before. But it's not easy.
Yeah, and sadly, not everyone shares the beliefs and values that we're articulating here. There are a vast number of people who don't care, right? It just doesn't matter to them. They're not being impacted by it, so they don't care. And there's a vast number of people that, are benefiting from the way things are. And so they'll resist. So that just, speaks to the importance of those who do believe these things in equity and inclusion and diversity and the value of people, regardless of what they look like or their physical capabilities, to speak up at every opportunity.
But Lenwood, I agree with you that there is a lot of people that don't think like we do, but the number of people is increasing because people are speaking up, as you mentioned, and we have to continue with this work to make awareness about. And I think the world is changing, not as much as we would like to, because as Adam told, what is happening right now is so depressing.
5,000 person organization.
Sorry. This is on topic. I wanted to see if it didn't mean to play it, but go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, I thought there was some technical.
I don't know why it played. But.
Sometimes technology, but no, that's what I wanted to say. No, the world is changing, sometimes too slowly, but we have to keep on working on that. And
I do think that a challenge that this creates, though, is one of building business ghettos, if you like. So, you create a group, Women in Business, or the Black Business Awards, or the Young Asian Business Awards, and they're brilliant because they celebrate the achievements within those communities, and that's really valuable. However, there's a very real risk that women in business and Black people in business and Asian people in business stay within those communities rather than using that as a platform to bring everybody together. Now, of course, there are loads of people in every group that are not very good at what they do. But equally, there are loads of people in every group that are not very good at what they do. So it's like there needs to be a bringing together of all of these different pockets which promote inclusivity and recognize success and overachievement. But also they need to be brought into the wider mainstream, so it becomes the norm that you see a breakdown of 50-50 amongst men and women in boards, in awards, in all of these different areas, because that's the way that the world should work, and in fact does work in terms of performance.
I agree with that. The key, right, is valuing diversity, seeing that there's value in different perspectives, having people of all different kinds of backgrounds in the room talking about the issues and recognizing that as valuable. And there's still people who just don't. I'm not saying that it's stopping us, but there are still many people who don't subscribe to that way of thinking. They think it's like affirmative action. It's just check the box. It's we got to have a Black guy or a Black woman or a Latino. We got to have a little bit, because we don't want people to get mad that we don't have that, right? It's not really about valuing the contributions that a different perspective brings.
So we're going to move on to a different subject in a second. I mean, great conversation, everybody. Brentney, you just posted something. I think if Tim can bring it up for us.
We simply would not be the 5,000 person.
It's a TikTok video. It came out on International Women's Day, and it's just kind of a little tongue-in-cheek point on what we're talking about, the checking the boxes of recognition, and then sometimes how we see it played out. So it's very short, but
Run VT.
We simply would not be the 5,000 person organization that we are today without both of the women in this company. So thank you, Erica. Erica, this is your time, please, without further ado. Thanks, Sean. So a little bit about me. I was hired 2 years ago to lead our go-to-market. But that's not all you do, right, Erica? So for context, guys, Erica's job really is about driving awareness and adoption with our customer, and she can tell you better day to day what she's doing, but I thought I would just add some color here. Celebration of Women's Day. We've got open beer and wings at 7 p.m. at Buffalo Wild Wings, so we'll see you there. All right, folks, happy Women's Day.
Thanks, Brentney. Well, look, I mean, to make the point, because we're talking about kind of diversity and teams, and at the same time, you know, we have got a big talent shortage that's out there, and so that leads into the post that Alex was going to share from his views this week. So over to you, Alex.
Thank you, Will. Do you want me to share my screen or?
Yeah, that would be great, please.
Cool. Whilst I'm doing that, share the right screen. There we go. Cool. Yeah, so it's not a new topic, but when we think about the talent shortage, it's mainly kind of off the back of the pandemic and the accelerated growth that we experienced in the pandemic. Last year, we saw the Great Resignation, which is now the Great Realization. You know, companies realizing that they've got to change, and the future of work is going to be very different. Different in terms of flexible hours, days, location. But with the growth that we've seen in the last sort of year or two, this has created a massive shortage in talent. And so this article here, this report that Manpower did, I think really sort of highlights some key areas for us to think about. You know, one of which is around sort of, you know, building human strengths. And when we think about, you know, some of the, you know, the things that companies look for in terms of qualifications and certifications, you know, whilst they might be in short supply, there's other things to be thinking about in terms of the soft skills that companies should be looking for, in my opinion. So if we kind of take a quick look, I was quite surprised at this actually. If we look at the UK, the number one most difficult soft skill in the UK to find is reliability and discipline. So we're all late for work and are naughty.
Eric's very upset.
USA
Victorian Eric.
But in the US, it's stress tolerance and adaptability.
Dude.
Wow.
Yeah, and if we look at where's the Netherlands gone?
Very interesting.
There it is. Netherlands, it's critical thinking and analysis, and number two is leadership and social influence, which I thought was interesting.
Mm.
So I had to play around with all of the different categories here, and it's a really fascinating report, Alex. So I'm really pleased that you kind of shared it with us, because I think there was some standout things when you look at, because I think overall they said worldwide there's 70% of organizations have reported that there's a shortage, and yet where you go and look, for instance, geographically at where that shortage is, the positive countries at the moment are the kind of US and China, and when you look at those which are struggling, it's more kind of European, Canada, and some of the South American. So I think that there's kind of a link there with demographics and things like that. So as you've been doing, I think it's really great to come through and have a play through and look at the stats from the different countries.
Really fascinating.
That's really interesting, Alex. Yeah.
Can I go ahead?
As I say, I can get on my soapbox about this, and we can talk about this for the next 4 hours if you like. But one of the things you get, I don't know what it's like in the US. So in the UK we've got a load of people that can't be bothered to get out of bed, and in the US we've got loads of people running around pulling their hair out by the looks of it. But what we've got in industries in the UK is they're saying we're really short of people, and then we're putting in front of them people who have got transferable skills, soft skills, but not necessarily the industry experience. And they're going, no, I can't take those. They've not got industry experience. So it's bizarre. And Tim, Adam, I bang this drum quite a lot, but yeah, there needs to be a willingness to nurture the harder skills, but take on board the soft skills that often mean that people will excel at the job they do.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Matt, because it's really remarkable, right? I don't know that much about recruiting, but I do know there's a lot of automation in recruiting, and there might be people that would be very good for organizations, but those people are getting kicked out because they don't have the right words in their resume. And so the recruiters aren't even talking to them. You see these job descriptions and the list of requirements that people have for someone to take on some of these jobs it's kind of crazy. And yet at the same time, you have organizations that realize they need to upskill and reskill, the whole workforce. Everybody needs some sort of upskilling for the future. So why not bring in somebody and train them up? Even though
job descriptions are written by someone to.
Yeah, that's it.
I was just going to say, as a recruiter, why not bring them in and upskill them? Because they're going to churn. The average tenure of a VP of sales is 18 months and dropping. The average tenure of a sales executive is about that as well. Other roles, they'll stay longer, but why am I going to invest in them so that they can leverage that to get a better job is the mindset.
But also this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, doesn't it? So you hire somebody to do a particular job, and you hire them based on here's a job description and job requirements. We'll give that to the recruiter. The recruiter will go and find that person. It turns out that person's crap. So we sack them in 3 months. So we're going to recruit somebody else. What do? Oh, we'll use the job description from last time. And well, you've already proven the job description gets somebody that isn't very good. And yet we're caught in this kind of routine where actually we're looking at the wrong things. Tim and I we met before I started at Oracle, but we basically got to know each other properly when we were working at Oracle together. When I went to join the company, they wanted to see my exam certificates from my A-levels, which I had got 30 years earlier. Now, as it happened, I said
was that when you were at school when he was a boy?
It was. He was in the year beneath me. But the point is that this was a large company that had a methodology for hiring people, which in many cases was successful. But actually, how relevant is an exam that you take when you're 17 or 18, when you're then in your 40s, and you've been out in the workplace for 30 years? And we all know that what you learn at school and at college and at university, the rough edges are knocked off that by spending a decade or 2 or 3 or 4 in the workplace, where actually you learn what are the real skills that are required. How do you temper those theoretical things that you learn in the educational environment and actually apply them in a practical way to the challenges of being in the workplace and in business? And so many organizations don't acknowledge that. And there's this lovely line about you hire for attitude and train for skills, but still, absolutely to your point, what happens is you say, but you need to have 10 years experience of doing that job. Why? Because that's 10 years experience of how the job used to be, not how the job is now necessarily, particularly in a lot of the areas that we operate within.
Adam, I'm with you, and I'm a little bit biased because I'm somebody who's worked in operations, in R&D, in sales, in purchasing, and in HR. So, I've had that variety across those different functions, and actually, it's more or less been the attitude and the general competences that I've brought, rather than the specific functional competencies or skills that have been required. And when I've gone out and hired, I've tended to look for attitude rather than necessarily finding somebody who's 100% with the skills required for that particular role, because I know that that's something that they're going to grow into and learn in the role, learning on the job. And as you say, it's going to be learning on the job now rather than 2 or 3 years ago, or with 2 or 3 years viewpoint on the world. So absolutely, I'm with you on that.
It's kind of remarkable. Sorry, someone.
Carry on, Linwood.
Yeah, it's kind of remarkable how fixed mindset is baked into so many systems, right? It's basically the assumption that how a person is the day they take their A levels is the same way they'll be 30 years from now. So we're going to look at the A levels, right? It does no accounting for growth over those 30 years. And maybe there are a lot of people who don't grow over 30 years, but it's remarkable how much bias there is kind of built into all these systems that is against something that everybody says they want. Oh, you got to have a growth mindset to work here. Right. But what have you been doing for the last 10 years? And, well,
I think a lot of it. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, if companies don't change, then they are at risk of not being around for long. I mean, Tim, I have this, I keep thinking about this stat that you shared a few weeks ago. Is it so for every 5 jobs, there's 1 candidate? Did I get that right?
Oh yeah, we got some research off by taking the LinkedIn data that in the UK in tech sales, there's currently 5 jobs for every candidate, and in the US, same area. So for tech sales, there's currently 3 jobs for 1 candidate.
Yeah, and so unless companies change the way that they're recruiting, they ain't going to recruit.
Recruiting and operating.
And operating, because that leads very nicely into. Thank you, Linwood. Leads very nicely into your part, which is on the data from the Pew Research Group.
Yeah, really. Oh, let me share my screen here.
Alex, I think we could have talked the whole hour on that.
And into next week.
Yeah, it's just.
I'm sharing my screen. There we go. Yeah, so I came across Kim Parker's post. She is Director of Social Trends Research at the Pew Research Center. And they came out with their study earlier in the week on why people are quitting. What are they saying? What are the reasons why they're quitting? And, this is something I've been focused on for weeks now. Really curious about, what is it? Is it burnout? Is it this? Is it that? Number one reason why people are quitting, pay was too low. Pay was too low. I don't know how much I'd be able to tolerate hearing how my company was constantly having profits that were record profits, record profits for the company. We've had our 5th year of record profits, and yet they're only increasing salaries by 2% or 3% per year, right? That would kind of grate on me too. No opportunities for advancement in the organization. People feel disrespected at work. Childcare issues, very practical reasons why. So this is really just fascinating to me in terms of, the reasons why people say they're leaving, and also the differences between whether they have a graduate, whether they have a college degree and up versus people who don't have a college degree. You see the numbers. I won't say that they're similar, but you still have large numbers of people, right, in both groups that are speaking to that. As an example, reasons for quitting in 2021. Not enough flexibility to choose when to put in your hours, right? We're hearing a lot about flexibility of work. If you have a college degree or more, there was like 34% of those people said that was the reason why that they were leaving. Don't have a college degree, almost 50% of people say that lack of flexibility is a reason why they're leaving their job.
Wow.
Wow.
You know, that's really really remarkable. And most people are finding that their new position is paying them more or giving them the thing that they left their old job for. All right. Now there are some variations. Interestingly, though, people who do not have a college degree oftentimes leave their job and find themselves going into a situation that was worse, where they're not getting the same kind of situation that they were leaving. So it's a you know, they've got a lot of statistics in here. There's no point in going through all of them. I just think it's kind of remarkable where you have this situation where there's a huge talent shortage.
What I found interesting, Lenwood, was, and I'll take a slightly contrarian point, because I went to the bottom of the report, having looked through all of that really interesting data, and there is a lot of interesting data there. And the main takeaway that I took from it was basically the people who are leaving their jobs because of all these reasons tend to be those who are younger and those who are in low income. So for me, it was actually, well, surely that's the way it's always been. Those people are more likely to move jobs because they're unhappy, and trying to then balance that with the kind of the great resignation, the great reset, whatever you want to call it, the great whatever. I think more the information that was coming out from that was it was tending to be more people who'd been in established roles and perhaps were older and were questioning their place in the workplace, and then deciding to take you know, more of a risk or a step away from something they've been in for a longer time. And I couldn't necessarily see, I didn't have enough time to go through it, but I didn't necessarily see that in the evidence of this particular report.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that among a certain subgroup, some of those assumptions that were, particularly the people who are college educated and above, right? Among that subgroup, you know, some of the things that we would have expected, we really didn't see coming from, you know, what this report was saying. But when you looking at people who have a little lower level of education, right? That's what we would expect, but really that's what I mean to say is, yeah, we would expect those people to be leaving their jobs because they're unhappy, but really that's really the point, is that for those people who do not have as high an education, those folks continue to be left behind. Yet there's a talent shortage. There are all these needs for technical people with skills, but you know, these folks aren't prepared for that. And the only way they're going to get prepared is if organizations step up and start preparing people who may not have the qualifications that they expect. They may not have a college degree. Do they need one?
Yeah, I think we'll see a I think we'll see a shift.
They are.
Yeah.
We are.
Companies realize they can't find the right people or the people they think they need.
I just saw something on this last night. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead. Finish your.
No, go.
Sorry. I've just been sitting here, like literally sitting on my hands, like because I just kind of had my eyes open to this. We are seeing companies opening up positions that probably you don't need to have a degree to excel in, and I think that's great. But it's scary for people my age who might only have a couple of years to get the value out of your degree on top of what's already going on. And that is, there also companies like Fast Growth aren't wanting to invest in training. So they're requiring a lot of experience for maybe that middle role. So the amount of experience you need for these, you know, to advance your career as someone who, for me, still has a lot of years to work at, you know, is increasing, like, and then coming up from the bottom, the degree or the leverage that you might have over where you're at in your career is being devalued because these companies aren't necessarily requiring it. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it said something like we're technically not in a labor shortage. The number of people that are willing and wanting to work is a lot larger than the number of jobs that are available as a collective.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really sorry, but we are on the hour, and I know that we've got to cut it short now. I think we've got plenty of material to continue these discussions on these subjects next time round. So I'd just like to thank all of you for your participation. Thanks to everybody who's been adding in the comments channel as well. We really appreciate that, and we very much look forward to seeing you again next week.
Cool. Bye all.
Bye everyone.
Thanks, Will.
Have a great week.
Thanks.